Let's start with the scary ones and slowly work our way towards the most terrifying ones on the list. We're talking about what might actually happen when Lucy and the Ghoul finally reach New Vegas, how the show might handle one of gaming's most beloved stories, and whether Cooper Howard is about to find the family he's been hunting for over 2 centuries. You'll hear about 3 things tonight that nobody's talking about yet. First, the quiet way the show's already told us which New Vegas ending is canon without saying a word. Second, what Mr. House's appearance really means for everyone who thought they understood Vault-Tec's plan. And third, the one character death that's been set up since episode 1 that nobody sees coming. Oh, and there's one more thing. A production detail from the set that accidentally revealed the show's biggest twist for the finale. Number 10, the show has already picked its New Vegas ending, and it's hiding in plain sight. Here's what most people missed. When Season 1 ended with that glowing shot of New Vegas across the Mojave, you could see the Lucky 38 casino lit up like a beacon. In the game, that building only stays powered if Mr. House remains alive and in control. The NCR ending would have shut it down. The Legion ending would have destroyed it. The Independent ending could go either way, depending on whether you kept House's systems running. But the show gave us a fully operational Lucky 38, with lights blazing across the strip, which means House never got unplugged. Actor Aaron Moten said in a recent interview that the show treats history as written by whoever's left standing to write it, and that different factions will claim they won. Sounds diplomatic, right? But here's the thing. You can't have multiple winners when the physical evidence points to one specific outcome. The set photos from filming showed a near-perfect recreation of House's penthouse, complete with his massive computer screen. Justin Theroux got cast as the live-action version of the character, and the trailer showed him very much alive and very much in charge. If you needed House dead for your ending, well, that's not what happened here. The destruction of Shady Sands makes it even clearer. That was the NCR's capital, and the timeline suggests it got nuked shortly after the events of New Vegas. A faction that just won control of Hoover Dam and the entire Mojave doesn't lose their capital city that easily. It means they were weak, stretched thin, vulnerable. They lost the dam. They lost Vegas. Then they lost everything. Caesar's Legion shows up in the Season 2 trailer, but here's the key detail. They're in an encampment, not ruling from the Lucky 38. They're still fighting, still scraping, still trying to take what they think belongs to them. That's not what a victorious Legion looks like 15 years after winning. That's what a Legion looks like that never broke through, that got held at the dam, that watched House keep his grip on the city while they bled out in the desert. The show's playing a clever game by saying nobody really won, but the evidence suggests House came closest. He kept his tower. He kept his power. He kept his city. Everyone else is still fighting over the scraps. Number 9. Mr. House knows exactly who Cooper Howard is, and their pre-war connection is going to rewrite everything we thought we knew. The trailer showed us something interesting. Cooper Howard, before he became the Ghoul, visiting the Lucky 38 casino in its original pre-war glory. He's dressed sharp, looking around, taking it all in. Now, why would a Hollywood actor and Vault-Tec spokesperson end up in Robert House's casino? Here's where it gets good. House attended that Vault-Tec meeting where Cooper's wife Barb pitched the idea of actually dropping the bombs themselves. House was in the room. He heard the whole plan. He saw Barb Howard present the end of the world like a quarterly earnings report. And if House was paying attention, which he always is, he would have known exactly who Barb was married to. Fast forward 2 centuries. House is still running New Vegas from his computer, probably the only pre-war executive besides Bud Askins who's actually still conscious and aware. The Ghoul shows up looking for answers about Vault-Tec management, trying to find his family. House has those answers. He was there when it all got planned. He might even know where they stashed the executives, including Barb. But here's the twist nobody's ready for. House might have been working with Barb the whole time. Think about it. House's defenses kept New Vegas from getting nuked, but those defenses had to be built and ready before the bombs dropped. He knew when it was coming. He knew because he was in on the plan. The show's been setting up this idea that Vault-Tec wasn't working alone, that they needed partners, that the whole corporate conspiracy ran deeper than one company. House provided the location, the infrastructure, the vision for what Vegas could become after the world ended. Vault-Tec provided the timeline and the firepower. When Cooper and House finally meet in the present day, it's not going to be a friendly reunion. House has information Cooper's been dying for, literally for 200 years. But that information comes with a price, and knowing House, it's going to be a price that involves Lucy, involves Maximus, involves everyone getting pulled deeper into a game they didn't know they were playing. Number 8. Lucy's going to discover her mother didn't die in a raider attack, and the truth is so much worse than she imagined. Season 1 gave us that story about how Lucy's mom, Rose, died on the surface after a raider attack on Vault 33. It's the foundational trauma that shaped Lucy's entire worldview, the reason she became who she is. Except we learned by the end that almost nothing about the vaults is what it seems. Here's what we know for sure. Rose left the vault with Hank. Something happened on the surface. Hank came back alone, traumatized, and eventually became overseer. The official story says Raiders killed Rose, but Hank is a Vault-Tec junior executive, one of Bud Askin's chosen managers who was literally frozen in time to run Vault experiments. And Moldaver, the woman who raided Vault 33 in Season 1, seemed to have a personal connection to Rose. She kept Rose's skeleton, treated it with something approaching reverence, used her corpse to manipulate Hank. That's not how you treat the random victim of a raider attack. That's how you honor someone you knew, someone who mattered. The theory that's quietly building is this. Rose didn't die in a raider attack. Rose left. She found out what Vault 33 really was, what Hank really was, what Vault-Tec had done to her family, and she couldn't go back. Maybe she tried to take Lucy and Norm with her. Maybe Hank stopped her. Maybe there was a confrontation that ended with Rose on the surface, cut off from her children, unable to return. Moldaver found her, or Rose found Moldaver, and they worked together for years trying to expose Vault-Tec's crimes. When Lucy reaches New Vegas and starts digging into her father's past, into his connection to Vault-Tec management, she's going to find records. Security footage. Maybe even messages her mother left behind, warnings she tried to send. The raiders who attacked the vault in Season 1 weren't random violence. They were Moldaver's people, and Moldaver knew exactly what she'd find in Vault 33 because Rose told her. Because Rose spent years trying to get back to her children, trying to warn them, trying to save them from becoming their father. Lucy's about to learn that her mom died fighting Vault-Tec, not running from raiders, and that Hank let her believe a lie for her entire life. Number 7, Maximus is going to have to choose between the Brotherhood and Lucy, and the Brotherhood is going to lose. The Season 1 finale set this up perfectly. Maximus got promoted tonight, achieved everything he thought he wanted, finally earned the respect and status he'd been chasing since he was a kid. But the price was lying about what happened with the power armor, with Titus, with everything that went down in the wasteland. The Brotherhood thinks he's a hero. He knows he's a fraud. And now he knows that Lucy's father destroyed Shady Sands, the city where Maximus grew up, the place where everyone he knew died in nuclear fire. The Brotherhood thinks Hank's a valuable prisoner they can use for information. Maximus knows he's a mass murderer who deserves to die. That's one conflict. Here's the other. The Brotherhood is heading to New Vegas, and so is Lucy, and so is the Ghoul. When they all converge on the same place, the Brotherhood is going to want the technology, the power, the resources that New Vegas represents. Robert House sits on a treasure trove of pre-war tech, Securitron armies, energy weapons, everything the Brotherhood obsesses over. They're not going to negotiate, they're going to take. And Lucy, who's trying to understand her father's crimes and find the truth about Vault-Tec, is going to get caught in the middle. The Brotherhood will give Maximus an order. Secure the target, eliminate the threats, do your duty as a knight, and Lucy will be designated a threat because she's interfering with their mission, because she's helping the Ghoul, because she knows too much about what really happened and why. Maximus has spent his whole life wanting to belong to something bigger than himself, wanting to be a hero like the Brotherhood Knights who saved him from the rubble of Shady Sands. But the organization he's idealized isn't what he thought it was. They're not saviors. They're hoarders, fanatics who'd rather control technology than use it to help people. When he has to choose between following orders and protecting Lucy, he's going to choose Lucy, and it's going to cost him everything he's worked for. The Brotherhood doesn't forgive desertion. They'll hunt him, brand him a traitor, try to execute him for abandoning his oath. Which means, by the end of Season 2, Maximus won't be a knight anymore. He'll be a fugitive, Just like Lucy. Just like the ghoul. 3 people with nothing left to lose except each other. Number 6. Vault 21 is where the ghoul's family has been sleeping for 200 years, and waking them up might destroy what's left of New Vegas. In the game Fallout New Vegas, Vault 21 was built directly under the Strip, and Mr. House eventually filled most of it with concrete to stop the Vault dwellers from interfering with his plans. But the show's been dropping hints that things went differently in this timeline. The Season 1 finale showed a billboard for Vault 21 visible in the New Vegas skyline. That's not an accident. Production designers don't include specific Vault numbers unless they matter to the story, and if you're trying to figure out where Vault Tech would stash its most important executives, the ones who plan the end of the world, Vault 21 makes perfect sense. It's right there under the Strip, under House's nose, close enough to the center of power that they could emerge and take control when the time was right. Barb Howard, Cooper's wife, was one of the key Vault Tech executives. She didn't just work there, she was in the room proposing they be the ones to launch the nukes. Someone that important doesn't get left outside when the bombs fall. She gets a cryopod in a secure vault with the rest of management. And where she goes, her daughter Janie goes too. The ghoul's been keeping himself alive for 2 centuries on the belief that his family survived somehow. That's not hope. That's information. He knows Vault Tech had the technology. He knows they kept people frozen. He knows if anyone got that treatment, it would be the executives and their families. When he catches up to Hank in Season 2, Hank's heading to New Vegas because that's where Vault Tech's seat of power is. That's where the frozen management is waiting to be revived. The problem is what happens when you wake them up. Barb Howard and the other executives don't know the world's been running for 200 years without them. They think they're going to wake up, step out of their pods, and start implementing the plan they discussed in that boardroom. They think they're going to reshape civilization according to Vault Tech's vision. They don't know about the NCR, the Brotherhood, the Legion, all the factions that have built their own power structures. They definitely don't know about Mr. House still being conscious and in control. And they absolutely don't know that one of them is married to a ghoul who's become one of the wasteland's most dangerous killers. When those cryopods open, it's not going to be a happy family reunion. It's going to be the beginning of a war for control of New Vegas that makes the battle for Hoover Dam look like a skirmish. Number 5, the Kings are all ghouls now, and it's going to reveal something horrifying about what happened to Freeside after the game ended. One of the Season 2 posters showed the Kings, that gang of Elvis impersonators from the game, except now they're all ghouls. Radiation-scarred, centuries-old ghouls still wearing their pompadour wigs and jumpsuits. In the game, they were regular humans running Freeside, protecting their territory, maintaining order in the chaos outside the Strip. So what happened? Here's the theory that makes sense with what we know. After the battle for Hoover Dam, after Mr. House consolidated control, he decided he couldn't have independent factions operating in his backyard anymore. The Kings were too organized, too loyal to their own leadership, too likely to resist if House wanted to expand his influence into Freeside. So he exposed them, deliberately. Radiation, maybe from the water supply, maybe from weapons, maybe just from forcing them out of their protected areas into the worst parts of the wasteland, slow enough that they didn't die immediately, but thorough enough that every member of the gang eventually turned. Now, here's where it gets dark. Ghouls can live for centuries if they don't go feral. The Kings from the game, the ones players met in 2281, could still be around in 2296 when the show takes place. Same people, same memories, same personalities, just trapped in deteriorating bodies that mark them as outcasts. They'd remember when they were human. They'd remember when Freeside was their home, when people respected them instead of feared them. They'd remember exactly who did this to them and why. And they'd be angry. Not the mindless rage of feral ghouls, but the calculated, patient anger of people who've had 15 years to plan revenge against the man in the Lucky 38. If the Kings are still organized, still maintaining their gang structure after all this time, they're a threat. Maybe the only faction in New Vegas that truly understands what House is capable of because they survived his attempt to eliminate them. When Lucy and the ghoul arrive in Freeside, the Kings are going to recognize the ghoul for what he is. One of them, a survivor of radiation who kept his mind intact. They might see him as an ally, or they might see him as another outsider come to exploit what's left of their territory. Either way, the Kings are going to be key players in whatever conflict erupts in Season 2, and their story is going to show us just how ruthless Robert House really is when something threatens his vision for Vegas. Number 4. Caesar's Legion didn't disappear after losing the dam, and they've spent 15 years preparing for one final assault that's going to happen this season. The trailer gave us glimpses of Legion camps, Legion soldiers, that distinctive red and gold aesthetic that marked them in the game. But here's what's interesting. They're not occupying New Vegas. They're outside it, circling, waiting. In the game, if the Legion lost the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, conventional wisdom said they'd collapse. Caesar might be dead. Lanius might have led them to destruction. The whole slave empire built on military conquest would crumble without constant victories to sustain it. Except that's not what happened in the show's timeline. They adapted. The Legion that shows up in Season 2 isn't the same force from the game. They've had 15 years to learn from their defeat, to understand that frontal assaults against House's Securitron army don't work, to develop new strategies. Maybe they've infiltrated the Strip using slaves who can pass as regular wastelanders. Maybe they've made alliances with other factions who hate House's authoritarian control. Maybe they've figured out how to hack or disable the Securitrons, removing House's main military advantage. The casting of Macaulay Culkin as a crazy genius-type character suddenly makes more sense. What if he's not working for House? What if he's the Legion's secret weapon, a brilliant mind they've enslaved or convinced to join their cause, someone who can understand pre-war technology well enough to turn it against House? The show loves to subvert expectations about factions. The Brotherhood isn't as noble as Maximus thought. Vault-Tec isn't benevolent. The NCR wasn't the force for democracy everyone believed. So maybe the Legion isn't just mindless brutes. Maybe they're smarter, more patient, more dangerous than anyone gave them credit for. When the conflict erupts in New Vegas, it's not going to be a simple siege. It's going to be a coordinated strike that hits House's vulnerabilities, targets his infrastructure, maybe even corrupts his own Securitron network. The Legion learned from their defeat. And they're about to show everyone what happens when you give them time to prepare a second invasion. Number 3. Robert House orchestrated the destruction of Shady Sands, and Hank McClain was just his instrument. We know Hank nuked Shady Sands. That got revealed in Season 1. What we don't know is why, or who gave the order, or where he got a nuclear weapon 15 years after the world already ended. Hank's a Vault-Tec junior executive, but he's middle management, not upper leadership. He doesn't have the authority or resources to independently acquire and deploy a nuclear weapon. Someone gave it to him. Someone told him where to aim it. Someone with a vested interest in seeing the NCR's capital destroyed. Think about the timeline. Shady Sands gets nuked shortly after the events of Fallout New Vegas. The NCR, already weakened from their war with the Legion, loses their capital and collapses as a major power. That leaves a power vacuum in the Mojave. And who benefits most from the NCR disappearing? Robert House. He's running New Vegas, but the NCR's been a constant pressure on his territory, trying to annex the city, trying to bring it under their bureaucratic control. With the NCR out of the picture, House has free reign. The show's been building this idea that the pre-war corporations didn't just end the world, they're still trying to control what comes after. House is the only CEO from that era who's still conscious, still implementing his pre-war plans. If he was in on Vault-Tec's conspiracy from the beginning, he'd know about the frozen management, about the vaults full of executives waiting to wake up, about Bud Askin's program to seed overseers throughout the wasteland. He'd also know about Vault 31, 32, and 33. And he'd know that Hank McClain was one of the junior executives, a useful tool who could be manipulated. Maybe House contacted him, offered him something, power, status, a place in the New Order. Or maybe House threatened to expose what Hank really was, threatened to reveal to everyone in Vault 33 that their overseer was a Vault-Tec plant. Either way, House needed someone expendable to carry out an attack that would look like wasteland violence, not a calculated strike from New Vegas. Hank fit perfectly. When the truth comes out in Season 2, Lucy's going to realize her father was a pawn. And the Ghoul's going to realize that House has been playing everyone for 2 centuries. That his family's potential resurrection is just another move in a game that started before the bombs fell. The question is whether House can be stopped, or if he's already won. Number 2. Someone's going to die protecting Lucy, and it's going to be the Ghoul. This one's been set up since the beginning, you just have to see it. Cooper Howard's entire arc is about a man trying to hold on to his humanity while the wasteland strips it away piece by piece. He's kept himself alive through chemistry and violence for 200 years based on one belief: that he'd find his family, that there'd be some kind of reunion, some moment where it all meant something. But stories like this don't end with happy families, they end with sacrifice. When the Ghoul finally tracks down Vault 21, when he finally gets those cryopods open and sees Barb and Janie after 2 centuries, he's going to face a truth he's been avoiding. He's not the man they remember. He's a killer, a monster, someone who's done terrible things to survive. His daughter's not going to recognize him. She's going to see a ghoul, a creature, something terrifying, and Barb, if she's even capable of accepting what her husband's become, is going to be confronted with the fact that her corporate ambitions led directly to this, that she's responsible for creating the world that turned Cooper into the Ghoul. That family reunion is going to shatter him. But here's where Lucy becomes crucial. Over the course of Season 1, Lucy challenged the Ghoul's cynicism, made him remember who he used to be, reminded him that cruelty isn't strength, that there's still room for decency in the wasteland. She's become something like a moral compass for him, even if he'd never admit it. When the final conflict erupts, when House and the Legion and the Brotherhood all descend on New Vegas in a battle for control, Lucy's going to be caught in the crossfire, and the Ghoul's going to make a choice. He can pursue his family, try to force a reunion that will never work, cling to a past that's gone forever. Or he can protect the one person in the wasteland who still sees him as human. He's going to choose Lucy. He's going to step between her and whatever's coming, use his 2 centuries of wasteland experience to save her life at the cost of his own. It's the most human thing he could do. The one act that proves Cooper Howard is still in there somewhere. Walton Goggins has said in interviews that playing the Ghoul is about carrying pain, about a character defined by loss. That kind of character arc doesn't end with healing. It ends with redemption. And redemption in the wasteland means dying for something that matters. Number 1, the season's going to end with Lucy becoming the overseer of New Vegas, and it's going to set up a completely different kind of vault experiment. This is the prediction nobody's ready for, but it's the one that makes the most sense thematically. Think about what the show's been building. Lucy started in a vault, naive and idealistic, believing in the system. She went to the surface, saw the truth, learned that everything she'd been told was a lie. She watched her father murder, manipulate, and destroy lives to maintain Vault Tech's control. She's been radicalized by reality. Now she's heading to New Vegas, where all the power players are gathering. House, the Legion, the Brotherhood, the frozen Vault Tech executives. Everyone's fighting for control. Everyone's got their vision for how civilization should rebuild. And they're all wrong, because they're all stuck trying to recreate the old world, the pre-war corporate hierarchies or military dictatorships or slave empires. None of them have learned anything from the apocalypse. Lucy represents something different. She's seen both worlds. She understands the vault mentality, but she also understands the surface. She knows why the vaults failed, why the surface struggles, why neither approach alone is going to work. When the dust settles from whatever catastrophic battle ends Season 2, when House's plans crumble and the Legion breaks and the Brotherhood retreats, New Vegas is going to need someone to hold it together. Not a dictator, not a CEO, not a military commander. Someone who actually cares about people. The Lucky 38, House's casino tower, is essentially a vault. It's a sealed environment with life support, with technology, with everything needed to sustain a community. What if Lucy ends up in control of it? What if she becomes the overseer of New Vegas, trying to implement a new kind of system that combines the best of both worlds? It would complete her character arc. From naive vault dweller to someone who understands the complexity of wasteland survival. It would give the show a new direction for Season 3. Instead of wandering the wasteland, the main characters would be trying to build something. Trying to prove that civilization can work without tyranny, and it would honor the themes of the Fallout franchise. That humanity's greatest experiment isn't about surviving the apocalypse, it's about learning from it, about building something better instead of repeating The mistakes that ended the world in the first place. Lucy's been the moral center of the show from the beginning. By the end of season 2, she's going to become its leader. So here's what we're looking at. The show's picked Mr. House's ending without saying so directly. Cooper Howard and Robert House have a pre-war connection that's going to explode when they meet again. Lucy's mom didn't die the way she thought. Maximus is going to betray the Brotherhood for her. The Ghouls family is frozen under the Strip. The Kings are ghouls now, and they remember everything. Caesar's legion never went away. House destroyed Shady Sands through Hank. The Ghoul's going to die saving Lucy, and Lucy's going to end up running New Vegas in a completely new way. Season 2 premieres December 17th, and if you want to keep going deeper into the wasteland, there's a whole breakdown of what Macaulay Culkin's character might actually be, waiting right after this. Maximus isn't going to survive the season, and the clues have been there from the start, hidden in plain sight through every choice he's made and every lie he's told. The Brotherhood of Steel doesn't forgive traitors, and Maximus has already committed the one sin they can't overlook. He let a fellow knight die and took credit for missions he didn't complete. The moment Knight Titus died in that cave, crushed by the Yao Guai while Maximus stood outside the power armor watching, the countdown started. The Brotherhood might not know the truth yet, but stories like this always come out. Someone always talks, some piece of evidence always surfaces, and when it does, the sentence is death. No trial, no appeal, no second chances. The codex is clear. Desertion and deception earn execution. But here's what makes it tragic. Maximus is going to die doing exactly what the Brotherhood claims to value, protecting the innocent, defending the weak, sacrificing himself for others. He's going to embody every ideal they preach while they hunt him for breaking their rules. The irony is going to be perfect and devastating. Let's talk about what the show's actually setting up with the New Vegas conflict, because it's more complex than just factions fighting over territory. Robert House has been playing a 2-century-long game of chess, and everyone else just got invited to the board without knowing the rules. In the game, House was always presented as a rational autocrat, someone who'd sacrifice individual freedom for order and progress. But the show's version has a darker edge. Walton Goggins mentioned in an interview that Season 2 explores how power corrupts differently depending on whether you're trying to rebuild civilization or just control it. House falls into the second category. He doesn't want to save humanity. He wants to prove his vision was right, that his pre-war calculations about the future were accurate, that he's still the smartest person in the room after 200 years. That kind of ego doesn't compromise. It doesn't adapt. It doubles down even when reality proves it wrong. The show's been careful to establish that House's Securitrons are powerful but not invincible. We saw in Season 1 that electromagnetic pulses can disable them temporarily. We saw that they follow programmed commands, which means they can be hacked or fooled. We saw that they're machines, not thinking opponents. The Legion's been studying these weaknesses for 15 years. They've captured Securitrons, taken them apart, figured out how they work. When they attack in Season 2, it's not going to be a frontal assault like at Hoover Dam. It's going to be a precisely targeted strike at the infrastructure keeping House's robot army operational. Cut the power, disrupt the network, isolate the Lucky 38, and suddenly House's advantage disappears. Meanwhile, the Brotherhood's approach is going to be exactly what you'd expect from religious fanatics obsessed with technology. They're not going to negotiate with House or try to understand his systems. They're going to declare him an abomination, a pre-war relic-hoarding technology that belongs to humanity. Elder Clary, the new leader shown in promotional materials, represents a more aggressive faction within the Brotherhood. Not the cautious isolationist approach of previous elders. This is the Brotherhood that believes in taking what they want and destroying anyone who stands in their way. They see New Vegas as the ultimate prize. Pre-war robotics, energy weapons, industrial fabrication technology, maybe even aerospace and satellite systems if House really did preserve everything from his old Robco facilities. They're going to want it all, and they're going to view everyone else in the city as obstacles or thieves. That includes Lucy, who's traveling with the Ghoul and asking uncomfortable questions about Vault-Tec. That includes Maximus once they realize he's not following orders anymore. That includes every civilian in Freeside who gets caught between the Brotherhood and their objectives. The Brotherhood doesn't do collateral damage assessments. They do righteous crusades. And then there's the wild card nobody's accounting for. Vault-Tec's frozen executives are about to wake up in a world that moved on without them. Barb Howard and her colleagues went into those cryopods thinking they'd sleep for maybe 20 years, wake up to a post-nuclear world they could reshape according to corporate plans. They had spreadsheets. They had quarterly projections. They had market research on survivor behavior and resource allocation models. What they didn't have was any concept that their great experiment would run for 2 centuries completely unsupervised, generating results they never predicted. When those pods open, and Bud Askins or whoever's been maintaining the systems finally revives management, they're going to expect to step into power immediately. They're going to expect the vault overseers they trained to be waiting with reports. They're going to expect their corporate hierarchy to still mean something. Instead, they're going to find House, who's been awake the whole time and definitely doesn't answer to Vault-Tec anymore. They're going to find the NCR destroyed, which ruins decades of their social experiments. They're going to find the Brotherhood of Steel, which wasn't part of any projection model. And they're going to find Cooper Howard, Barb's husband, who's spent 200 years becoming something she won't recognize. That confrontation between the Ghoul and Barb is going to be the emotional center of Season 2, and it's going to hurt in ways the audience isn't prepared for. Because here's what nobody's talking about. Barb Howard isn't going to be sorry. She's going to defend every decision she made in that boardroom. When Cooper asks her how she could plan the end of the world, how she could doom their daughter to grow up in a nuclear wasteland, Barb's going to explain the logic, the math, the market research showing that humanity needed a hard reset, the competitive pressure from other corporations that meant Vault-Tec had to act first or lose everything. She's going to sound exactly like every corporate executive who's ever justified terrible decisions with growth metrics and shareholder value. And Cooper's going to realize that the woman he loved, the woman he built a life with, was always capable of this. He just didn't want to see it. The pre-war scenes in Season 1 showed us a marriage already strained by Barb's work, by the secrets she kept, by the moral compromises she made. Cooper thought she was just ambitious. Turns out she was something much worse. A true believer in the corporation, someone who genuinely thought Vault-Tec's apocalypse plan was good business strategy. Janie Howard is the other piece of this that's going to destroy him. His daughter went into that cryopod as a child, maybe 8 or 9 years old. She's going to wake up the same age, no memories of the past 2 centuries, no understanding of what happened to the world. She's going to be looking for her dad, expecting him to protect her like he always did. And instead, she's going to see a ghoul, someone who looks like a walking corpse, someone terrifying and wrong. The show's been very careful about how it portrays ghoul prejudice. We saw Lucy's initial reaction in Season 1. The fear, the disgust, the learned behavior from Vault life that taught her ghouls were monsters. Now imagine that same reaction from Cooper's own daughter, someone who knew him as a handsome actor and loving father. She's not going to recognize him. She's going to scream or cry or try to run. And there's nothing he can do about it. He can't make her understand. He can't force her to see past the radiation damage to the person underneath. The man who kept himself alive for 200 years imagining this reunion is going to get it, and it's going to be worse than if she died in the initial blast. That's when Lucy becomes important to his story. She's already proven she can see past the ghoul exterior. She's already called him Cooper, used his real name, acknowledged his humanity. When his actual family rejects him, Lucy's going to be the one who stands beside him, not out of pity, but because she understands what it means to have your family betray everything you thought they were. Her father destroyed a city. His wife destroyed the world. They're both children of monsters trying to figure out how to be better than their parents. That parallel is going to be what saves them both when everything else falls apart. The show's been building their relationship carefully, avoiding any romantic angles, keeping it focused on mutual respect and understanding. Lucy sees the ghoul as a person. The ghoul sees Lucy as someone who hasn't been completely ruined by the wasteland yet. They're both right, and they're both wrong, and that tension is what makes them work as characters. Now let's get into the production detail that supposedly leaked the finale twist, because this one's fascinating if it's true. Someone claiming to be a set assistant posted on a Fallout forum back in March, before the show even premiered, describing a scene they helped set up for Season 2. According to this post, which got deleted pretty quickly, they built a massive set piece inside the Lucky 38 penthouse. Not just House's computer terminal, but a whole cryogenic facility hidden behind false walls. The post described a scene where Lucy and the ghoul break through into this secret chamber and find dozens of pods, most of them empty, but a few still occupied. The production apparently spent days filming the sequence where these pods open, complete with practical effects for the ice melting and the occupants waking up disoriented and terrified. Now, this could be complete fabrication. Random people make up set leaks all the time for attention. But here's what makes it credible. The person described specific technical details about the cryopod props that match exactly what we later saw in the Season 1 finale during the Vault 31 scenes. Same manufacturer design, same interface screen, same ice effect around the seals. They'd have no way of knowing those details months before the show aired unless they actually saw them during production. And if House really has been hiding Vault-Tec executives in his tower for 2 centuries, it explains so much about his behavior, why he's so protective of the Lucky 38, why he never lets anyone inside, why his security is so extreme that even in the game, getting to meet him face to face was nearly impossible. He's not just protecting himself, he's protecting assets, insurance, people he can wake up when he needs them or keep frozen if they're more useful as leverage. The other detail from that supposed leak is even more interesting. The person claimed one of the pods they filmed contained a child labeled as subject JH07. JH Janie Howard, Pod 7. If that's real, it means House specifically took custody of Cooper's daughter, kept her separate from her mother, maintained her as a potential bargaining chip for 200 years. That's not just cold business strategy. That's psychological warfare. House knows exactly what the ghoul's been searching for. He's probably known the whole time. And he's been letting Cooper wander the wasteland, suffering, becoming more violent and desperate, while Janie slept peacefully in a pod 300 feet above the strip. When Cooper finds out House had his daughter all along, that he could have been reunited with her decades ago if House had just told him, there's going to be violence, the kind of violence that comes from 2 centuries of pain, finally finding a target. The ghouls killed a lot of people over the years, but killing House is going to be personal. Caesar's Legion showing up in force means we're finally going to see how they've evolved, and the promotional images suggest it's not what anyone expected. In the game, the Legion was portrayed as technologically regressive, rejecting most pre-war equipment in favor of melee weapons and simple firearms. They had a whole philosophy about strength through primitive living, about avoiding the corruptions that destroyed the old world. But the Legion that appears in Season 2 is using explosives, coordinated tactics, and what looks like salvaged energy weapons. They've adapted. Had to, probably, after losing the dam. Lanius, if he's still in charge, would have recognized that ideological purity doesn't win wars against robot armies. So they compromised, kept the structure, the discipline, the slave-based economy, but added pragmatic military technology. That makes them significantly more dangerous than the game version ever was. A Legion that's willing to use every tool available while maintaining their fanatical loyalty and complete disregard for casualties is basically unstoppable through conventional warfare. They'll throw waves of expendable troops at any defense, probing for weaknesses, and when they find one, they'll exploit it with whatever technology they've captured or stolen. The interesting question is what they want from New Vegas now. In the game, Caesar wanted the city as a symbol, a jewel for his empire. Proof that the Legion could conquer the NCR's territory and hold it. But 15 years later, with the NCR collapsed and House still in control, what's the Legion's motivation? Revenge, maybe. Finishing what they started at Hoover Dam, or maybe it's more practical than that. New Vegas sits on top of infrastructure the Legion needs. Water from the Colorado River, power from the dam, manufacturing capacity from House's factories. If they're going to expand east, if they're going to become more than just a regional power, they need what Vegas can provide. And unlike the Brotherhood, who want to hoard technology, the Legion wants to use it. They'd strip the city for parts, haul everything useful back to their territory, leave nothing but ruins behind. That's the Legion way. Not occupation, but extraction. take what you need, and move on. Macaulay Culkin's character is listed in the cast as a crazy genius type, which in Fallout terms usually means someone who's brilliant but completely amoral. Think of characters like Dr. Mobius or the Think Tank from the Old World Blues DLC, scientists who survived the apocalypse and went insane from isolation or from their own experiments. If Culkin's playing someone like that, the obvious question is which faction does he belong to? The smart money says he's independent, someone living in the ruins around Vegas who's been conducting his own experiments for decades. Maybe he's pre-war, kept alive through cybernetics or chemical treatments. Maybe he's post-war, just naturally gifted and completely unhinged. Either way, every faction is going to want him. The Brotherhood wants his knowledge. The Legion wants his weapons. House wants to eliminate him as a potential threat. And Lucy's probably going to be the only one who tries to actually talk to him like a person instead of a resource to exploit. That conversation is going to reveal something crucial about the pre-war world, something that recontextualizes everything we thought we knew. Maybe he worked for Robco with House. Maybe he was part of the team that designed the cryopods. Maybe he knows where other Vault-Tec facilities are hidden, places nobody's found yet. Whatever information he has, it's going to be the key to understanding how all these conspiracies connect. Now let's talk about Norm MacLean, because Lucy's brother has his own investigation happening back in the vaults, and what he discovers is going to parallel Lucy's surface journey in devastating ways. Season 1 ended with Norm entering Vault 31, finding Bud Askins in his cryopod, learning the truth about the breeding program and the management structure. Buddy's still in the vault, still surrounded by people who don't know what he knows, still trying to decide what to do with information that would shatter everyone's worldview. The preview material suggests Norm's going to become something like a resistance leader inside the vault system, trying to free people from Vault-Tec's control without causing mass panic. That's an impossible task. How do you tell people their entire life is a lie without destroying them? How do you dismantle a system when everyone around you has been conditioned from birth to trust it? Norm's going to try, and he's probably going to fail because the show doesn't do easy victories. The Vault Dwellers aren't going to believe him. They're going to think he's crazy or lying or been compromised by something. They'll report him to the Overseer, whoever that is now that Hank's gone. They'll try to have him reassigned or medicated or exiled. And Norm's going to have to decide how far he's willing to go to save people who don't want to be saved. The parallel to Lucy's journey is obvious. She went to the surface trying to save her father and ended up learning he was a monster. Norm stayed in the vault trying to uncover the truth and learned his entire community is built on lies. They're both dealing with the same fundamental problem. What do you do when the system you trusted turns out to be evil? When the authority figures you respected turn out to be complicit? When saving people means destroying everything they believe in? Lucy's answer has been to keep moving forward, to find concrete proof, to expose the conspiracy completely. Norm's answer is probably going to be similar. He'll gather evidence, document everything Bud Askins told him, try to build an irrefutable case that even the most devoted Vault Dweller can't deny. But evidence doesn't matter if people aren't ready to accept it. The show's been very smart about depicting how ideology works, how people defend systems even when those systems hurt them. Because admitting you were wrong, your whole life is too painful to bear. There's a scene described in early press screenings where Norm confronts Betty Pearson, the new overseer of Vault 33, with proof of the breeding program. He shows her documents, plays recordings, presents irrefutable evidence that everything they've been taught is a carefully constructed experiment. And Betty just looks at him and says something like, I know. We all knew. It doesn't change anything. That's the gut punch moment. The revelation that some people knew the truth all along and chose to participate anyway because the alternative was too frightening. Betty represents everyone who's ever gone along with a corrupt system because it's comfortable, because it provides stability, because questioning it means losing your place in the hierarchy. She's not stupid or brainwashed. She's complicit. And that's so much worse than ignorance. Norm's going to realize he can't save the vaults. He can only save himself and anyone else willing to leave, which is probably nobody. The resolution of Norm's arc is going to be heartbreaking because he's going to have to choose between staying in a system he knows is corrupt or abandoning everyone he's ever known to join Lucy on the surface. And here's the thing. nobody's considering. Norm's not built for the wasteland. Lucy had her naive optimism and her vault training, and she barely survived her first week outside. Norm's more cynical, more cautious, but he's also physically smaller, less experienced with weapons, and he's spent his entire life in climate-controlled environments eating processed food. The surface would kill him in days, so his choice isn't really a choice at all. It's stay and be complicit or leave and die. The show's going to make him pick the third option, stay and resist from within, become a saboteur inside the Vault system, quietly undermining Vault-Tech's experiments while pretending to go along with them. That's a lonely way to live. No one to trust, no one to confide in. Every day an act of deception while watching people you care about participate in their own exploitation. But it's the only choice that gives him a chance to actually change things, to slowly poison the system from inside until it collapses on its own. The Vault. 32 situation is going to escalate in ways that force Norm's hand. Remember, that vault had a complete breakdown, everyone dead or feral, the whole facility contaminated and sealed. Season 1 showed us the aftermath, but never explained what caused it. The prevailing theory is that it was another Vault-Tech experiment gone wrong. Maybe testing how a Vault population responds to resource scarcity or introducing a deliberate pathogen to study disease vectors. But the Season 2 promotional material shows Vault 32's door opening again and something coming out. Not feral ghouls, not raiders. Something else. The brief glimpse in the trailer looked almost like vault dwellers, but wrong. Moving strangely, coordinating in ways that suggest intelligence, wearing vault suits that are torn and stained, but still recognizable. If Vault-Tech was experimenting with human enhancement or biological modification, 32 could be where they tested it. And if the experiment didn't fail, but succeeded in horrifying ways, those former Vault dwellers might still be alive, still conscious, trapped in bodies that barely qualify as human anymore. That's the nightmare scenario for Norm, fighting modified humans who used to be neighbors, people from a sister Vault who suffered through an experiment even worse than the breeding program. And if they breach Vault 33, if they get inside and start attacking people, Norm's going to have to defend a system he hates to protect people who won't believe him about the danger they're really in. Betty's going to try to handle it through proper channels, filing reports with Vault-Tech management that no longer exists, following protocols designed for a world that ended 2 centuries ago. And Norm's going to have to take direct action, probably violent action, to save lives. That's going to mark him as dangerous in Betty's eyes, as someone who doesn't respect authority, who thinks he knows better than the system. She'll try to have him arrested or confined, and Norm's going to have to decide whether to submit or fight back. The smart money says he fights back, barricades himself somewhere in the vault with whatever evidence he's gathered, and broadcasts the truth to everyone whether they want to hear it or not. That's his play. Force the revelation, make it impossible to ignore, let the chips fall where they may. Meanwhile, on the surface, the ghoul's tracking Hank McClane, and that pursuit is going to lead him directly into the heart of the New Vegas conflict. Hank's not just running away, he's heading somewhere specific, following instructions he received from Bud Askins or whoever's coordinating the Vault-Tech overseers. His destination is the Lucky 38, where he expects to find management, to report on his experiments, to finally move up from middle management to a real position of power. He thinks he's going to be rewarded for nuking Shady Sands, for maintaining the breeding program, for keeping Vault 33 operational through 2 centuries. He thinks he's earned a promotion. What he's actually earned is a reckoning. The ghoul's been tracking him for weeks by this point, following his trail across the wasteland, getting closer with every episode, and Lucy's been tracking her father too, trying to understand why he did what he did, trying to find some explanation that makes sense of the man who raised her and the monster who destroyed a city. They're going to converge on New Vegas at almost the same time, arriving just as the Brotherhood and the Legion launch their respective attacks on House's territory. That's not coincidence. That's the show's writers' understanding that the best drama comes from multiple conflicts colliding simultaneously, forcing characters to make impossible choices about which priority matters most. Lucy has to choose between confronting her father and helping defend civilians caught in the crossfire. The ghoul has to choose between getting answers from Hank and protecting Lucy from the violence erupting around them. Maximus has to choose between following Brotherhood orders to secure technology and doing what's actually right. And all of this is happening while House's Securitrons fight the Legion in the streets, while the Brotherhood dropships deploy troops onto the Strip, while explosions light up the night sky and the city that stood for 2 centuries starts to burn. The sequence is going to be chaotic, handheld cameras, quick cuts, the sense that everything's falling apart at once. We'll see civilians running, trying to find shelter. We'll see Securitrons getting overwhelmed by sheer numbers of Legion troops. We'll see Brotherhood paladins in power armor smashing through House's defenses like they're not even there. We'll see the Kings, those Ghoul Elvis impersonators emerging from Freeside with weapons they've been stockpiling for 15 years, finally making their move against House while he's distracted. It's going to feel like the end of the world again, like everything that's been built since the bombs fell is about to collapse. And in the middle of it all, Lucy's going to find her father in the Lucky 38's lobby, trying to get to the elevators, trying to reach the penthouse where he thinks salvation waits. The confrontation between Lucy and Hank is the emotional climax the show's been building toward from episode 1. Everything Lucy's learned, everything she's seen, everything she's become over the course of the season, it all comes down to this moment. Her father, standing in front of her still in his vault suit, still trying to maintain the pretense that he's a good man who made hard choices. And Lucy, who left the vault as a naive optimist and returned as someone who's seen what the wasteland really is, what people really do to survive, what her own father really did to an entire city. The script for this scene apparently runs 8 pages, which in television terms is massive. Most confrontations last 2 or 3 pages at most. 8 pages means it's a long, brutal conversation where nothing gets resolved easily, where both sides say things that can't be taken back. Hank's gonna try justification first. He nuked Shady Sands because the NCR was dangerous, because they would have discovered the vaults, because Vault-Tech's mission was too important to let one city's survival threaten it. He's going to present it as a trolley problem, one city versus the entire Vault program versus humanity's future as Vault-Tech defined it. Lucy's going to counter with the obvious question. Who gave him the right to make that choice? Who decided that Vault-Tech's vision matters more than thousands of lives? And Hank's not going to have a good answer because there isn't one. He's going to fall back on authority, on following orders, on being part of something bigger than himself. All the excuses people always use when they don't want to admit they did something unforgivable. Then, Lucy's going to ask about Rose, about her mother, about what really happened on the surface. And Hank's going to lie. He's going to stick to the Raider story because admitting the truth means admitting he's kept Lucy and Norm trapped in a lie their entire lives. But Lucy's already figured it out. She's already pieced together enough clues to know her mother didn't die the way Hank claimed. She just wants to hear him say it, wants to give him one chance to be honest with her. He won't take it. That's when the Ghoul arrives, crashing through whatever's left of the Lucky 38's security, looking for Hank, ready to kill him for information about Vault-Tech management. And he's going to find Lucy standing between him and his target, because despite everything her father's done, she can't just let him die. Not without answers, not without understanding. The Ghoul's not going to care. He's been waiting 200 years for this moment, for someone who can tell him where his family is. Hank knows. Hank was part of the system, and the Ghoul's going to put a gun to Hank's head and demand answers whether Lucy likes it or not. This is the moment where Lucy's idealism finally breaks completely. She's been trying to believe that there's a peaceful solution, that people can be reasoned with, that violence isn't the answer. But watching the Ghoul interrogate her father, watching Hank crack under pressure and start babbling about Vault 21 and the cryopods and the management program, she's going to realize that sometimes the only way to get truth is through force. That the wasteland's rules apply even to her, even to her family, even to the moral lines she thought she'd never cross. Hank's going to tell them everything, not because he's brave, but because he's not. He's going to give up every secret, betray every confidence, throw Vault-Tech management under the bus if it means staying alive. He'll confirm that Barb Howard and the other executives are frozen in Vault 21, directly beneath where they're standing. He'll confirm that House has known about them the whole time, that House and Vault-Tech made a deal before the bombs fell. He'll confirm that Rose McClane discovered the truth, threatened to expose the program, and had to be eliminated, not killed. Exactly. Hank's not going to admit to murder, but eliminated, removed from the equation. Left on the surface with no way back to her children. He'll say it like it was a necessary business decision, like he's describing downsizing a department. And Lucy's going to hear her father talk about her mother's death with the same corporate detachment Barb Howard used when discussing nuclear war. That's the moment she realizes Hank's not a victim of Vault-Tech's indoctrination. He's a willing participant who fully embraced their philosophy. The ghoul's going to get his information, and then he's going to shoot Hank anyway. Because that's who he is. 200 years of wasteland violence doesn't disappear just because you got what you wanted. But Lucy's going to stop him, not with words this time, with action. She's going to physically intervene, knock the gun away, put herself between the ghoul and her father one last time. And the ghoul's going to ask her why. Why protect a man who nuked a city, who lied to her for her entire life, who got her mother killed? And Lucy's not going to have a good answer, just that he's still her father, that killing him won't undo what he did, that there has to be something better than just revenge. The ghoul's going to look at her like she's the most naive person in the wasteland, because she is. But he's going to lower the gun, because over the course of the season, Lucy's become the one person whose opinion he actually cares about. The one person who makes him remember being Cooper Howard, actor and father, instead of just the ghoul. That moment of mercy is going to cost them. While they're arguing, while Lucy's trying to convince the ghoul that there's another way, Hank's going to run. He's going to make it to the elevator, get the doors closed, start heading up to the penthouse where he still thinks House is going to protect him. And Lucy and the ghoul are going to have to chase him, which means going deeper into the Lucky 38, into House's sanctum, into the heart of the mystery. The elevator ride up is going to be tense and quiet, just Lucy and the ghoul in a confined space, both of them processing what just happened. Lucy's going to be shaking, adrenaline wearing off, reality setting in. She just protected her father, the man who destroyed Shady Sands, the man who got Maximus's entire community killed. What does that make her? The ghoul's not going to have an answer because he's asking himself the same question. He just let Hank live because Lucy asked him to. After 2 centuries of never showing mercy to anyone, he did it for her. What does that make him? The penthouse doors are going to open on a scene neither of them expected. Robert House's command center, but it's not empty. Hank's already there, kneeling in front of House's massive screen, begging for protection, explaining that he followed orders, that he did everything right. And House is going to be completely silent. The screen's on, the computers are running, but there's no response. That's when they're going to realize House isn't in control anymore. Something's happened to him, some malfunction or attack or sabotage that's left the Lucky 38 running on automated systems. The Securitrons are still following their last commands and still fighting in the streets, but there's no intelligence directing them, no strategy. They're just machines executing a program. And if House is gone, if he's been incapacitated or killed or somehow removed from the equation, then everything in New Vegas is up for grabs. The power vacuum is absolute. Is absolute. Is absolute. Is absolute. Is absolute. Is absolute.